Welcome to Eldritch, darling. How's my sweet little puppy doing tonight? I know you've missed Mommy's voice. Don't worry, I've got you. Tonight, love, I've prepared something dark for you. A few delicious horror stories to sink into while you're curled up, all warm and safe against me. So be a good boy, or a very good girl, and listen closely. Let my voice guide you through the shadows. You'll be safe as long as you stay close to me. Shh, it's starting now. My grandfather was a man carved from the stone of a brutal era. He lived and fought in a time when the world teetered on the brink of yet another great war. A British officer stationed in Burma during the Raj, he was given the thankless duty of maintaining order in a land that was not his own, among people who did not want him there. Rebellion simmered beneath the surface like fire beneath dry leaves, and his job was to keep it from becoming an inferno. The jungles of Burma were his battlefield, his domain. He was no stranger to the tangled ancient forests, nor to the men who used them as refuge. Dacoits, insurgents, warriors from forgotten tribes, all of them vanished into the green, where only the foolish or the desperate pursued. He had learned that those jungles hid more than just men. They held secrets, some older than the empire he served, older than the wars that men waged. He never liked telling this story. It was only on his deathbed that he finally spoke of it, in a hoarse whisper, as if afraid it would hear him, even after all those years. It began with reports of a rebel hideout deep in the jungle, further than any of his men had dared go before. The whispers spoke of a group gathering weapons, preparing for something larger than scattered raids. The war in Europe was a distant storm, but my grandfather knew it would eventually come to Burma. He suspected these men knew it too, and they were getting ready. So he and a small patrol ventured forth, pushing deeper than they ever had before. The jungle was unlike anything he had ever seen. It was as if they had stepped into a different world, untouched by time. The trees were impossibly tall, their roots thick and gnarled like ancient veins twisting into the earth. Massive orchids bloomed in impossible colors, their fragrance rich and intoxicating. The air was thick with the hum of unseen creatures, the chitter of insects, the distant cries of birds that no one had names for. For 2 days they trekked, finding nothing but beauty and silence. It was on the 3rd day that the silence became something else. The jungle had gone utterly silent. Not a single bird call, no buzz of insects, just the hush of their own breath and the faint rustle of leaves beneath their boots. It was the kind of silence that pressed in on you, heavy and unnatural. My grandfather knew what it meant. A predator was nearby. That's what they all thought. Maybe a tiger, maybe a leopard. Nothing they couldn't handle. They were armed, confident, and unafraid of any wild animal. But even with that assurance, something felt off. Each step forward made their skin crawl. Every instinct screamed, turn back, but they pressed on. The trees thinned ahead, revealing a rocky incline and a dark opening in the earth. A cave. From a distance it looked unremarkable, just another shadow beneath the hillside. But as they approached, something changed. First they noticed bones. Scattered at the cave's mouth, they assumed they belonged to animals, remnants of a predator's meal, maybe a tiger's den. But then they saw skulls, human skulls, mixed among the bones, dozens of them. As soon as we realized we were looking at human remains, my grandfather said, this stench hit us, thick and nauseating, like rot soaked in something ancient, Something wrong. It was the worst thing I've ever smelled. They moved cautiously, circling to the side, hoping to catch a glimpse of whatever beast might have made its lair inside. Maybe it was a man-eater, they thought, a rogue tiger, something they could understand. But when they finally peered into the cave, he said nothing at first, just wiped the sweat pouring down his face, even though the jungle air had gone cold. And there it was, just past the cave's threshold. Even years later, my grandfather struggled to put it into words. He said the first thing he saw were the eyes, if you could call them that. Two sunken voids, black as tar, swallowing the dim light around them. Then the mouth, far too wide, filled with jagged, uneven teeth like it was built for one purpose only, to rip, to devour. It had no hair, no ears, just skin, stretched so tightly over its bones it looked mummified, desiccated. There was no sign of muscle, no softness. It wasn't emaciated, it was wrong, like it had never been alive the way humans are, or had long since forgotten how to be. It didn't move. Its twisted body lay curled in the darkness, grotesque and still, like something in hibernation. The air around it felt heavy, thick with something old and foul. It radiated the kind of silence that follows a feast, a long, gluttonous feast. And the question that chilled them most, the one no one dared speak aloud. How long had that thing been lying there, watching, waiting? My grandfather never found out what it was. No one said a word. They didn't have to. Without a glance, without a whisper, every man turned and began to walk, slowly, silently, away from that cave. Not a single one dared to run. Not until they were a good distance out, far enough that the weight of its presence felt less suffocating. The fear wasn't just of what they'd seen, it was of waking it. He said, "We didn't stop. We kept moving like our lives depended on it, because they did. When we couldn't run, we walked. When our legs gave out, we crawled. We only paused when the jungle finally felt safe again. Eventually, the jungle stirred back to life. Birds began to call again. Insects resumed their endless hum. That was the only sign they had truly escaped. They covered 2 days' worth of ground in less than one. When they stumbled into the village, they were sunburnt, trembling, half mad from exhaustion and paranoia. No one asked where they had been. No one offered food or water. No one welcomed them back. The villagers just stared. It wasn't confusion in their eyes, it was recognition. Some looked on with pity, others with fear, but all of them knew. They knew what my grandfather and the others had seen. They knew what that thing was. And still, they said nothing, not until one of the Burmese men in the group finally asked. Only then did the truth slip out, quietly, reluctantly. Speaking of it, they said, invited it. Naming it brought it closer. Some truths must stay buried. Some names are better left unsaid. There are things in this world, old, ravenous things, that are best left undisturbed. My grandfather left Burma not long after. The war came, just as he'd expected. But he told me he didn't pray for protection from the Japanese. He prayed that whatever was sleeping in that cave would stay asleep. Because when the guns came and the fires raged, when men screamed and blood soaked the earth, he didn't know if that thing stayed resting, or if the scent of death had finally woken it. That's it for tonight, love. Time for my precious little pet to drift off now. You've been such a good listener. Mommy needs her rest too, but don't worry, I'm not going anywhere. I'll stay right here until you fall asleep. Just breathe, relax, and let go. Shh. There you go. And sweetheart, if Mommy's voice made you feel safe, if you liked our little story time, then be a darling and show your love. Like, subscribe, and keep coming back to me. Now close those pretty eyes. Good night, my sweet thing.